Next question is, how does the event of the Watchers descending in the days of Jared differ from the general banishment of Satan and 1/3 of the angels from heaven? Which came first? Satan and the fallen angels were banished probably the week of creation or before, right at that time period. We don't know for sure, but we see Satan tempting Adam in the garden, and the snake being cursed, the serpent being cursed. So those things were way before. Much later in the days of Jared, which would be 500 or 600 years later, you had, according to Enoch, 200 angels that descended. That started the major problem of the corruption that created the situation for the Lord to have to destroy the world with a flood. So with that type of Nephilim history, you have to understand Satan, the fallen angels tried to do things, but they didn't try to mess up the genetics. And so Satan and the fallen angels are still free to If Satan fell at Eden, how did he go to the throne of God in Job 1? Yeah, that's a good example of the angels that fell in Genesis 6 are chained under darkness until judgment day, so they're not out running around. Limited in what they are allowed to do, but they're free basically. Then there was Azazel that fell, that tried the genetic stuff, whatever it was he was trying to do. It didn't cause a major problem, and so there was no judgment for quite a while. And then later on, Semizia and the other guy, I forget, descended, 200 angels descended on Mount Hermon to cause their problems, basically doing the same thing that Azazel did, but in a much greater fashion, and they messed everything up. So the whole thing, according to prophecy, was blamed on Azazel. And in the Jewish ritual, when we have the ritual of the scapegoat, it's actually in Hebrew called the Azazel goat, because he's to blame for all the problems. So, and the banishment and all. So basically, Satan would have fallen right at creation. And I'm not sure when Azazel was, sometime between the two. And then the last rebellion of the 200 was around 500 to 600 AD. So, and that's a good example of the idea of generations, because it was during the days of, or the generation of, Jared, which means it occurred after Jared was born, but before Enoch was born, in the days when Jared was just Jared. He wasn't a father yet. So it's that generational type thing. So you can go back and pinpoint when Jared was born and when Enoch was born, and you know it's in that time period. If Satan fell at Eden, how did he go to the throne of God in Job 1? Yeah, that's a good example of the angels that fell in Genesis 6 are chained under darkness until judgment day, so they're not out running around. Satan is fallen, but is still able to go to and fro. and during the middle of the tribulation period, he will be permanently kicked out of heaven. How tall were the firstborn Nephilim? Were they really hundreds of feet tall? I doubt it. I think some of those could be exaggerations. One of the things is also like a tall tale, or something that's really tall or really short, can have other meanings. And so one of the things, the whole concept of them being a giant can be that they were like twice as tall as us, but it could also be that they were a giant in some other way, or a mighty man. A giant or a Gabor, mighty man of old. So think about a trained fighter in an army coming up against a itty bitty Japanese guy that's like half his size. He should be able to whoop him easy. But the Japanese guy whoops him because the Japanese guy knows martial arts, and the fighter didn't know any martial arts. So you look at that, and he's a really short guy, but he's got some superpower almost type thing. One of the things I thought was interesting is like everything degrades, but the what might have been the Anakim, the Longneckers, down in the remnants that went down into Peru, they didn't turn out to be much taller, or the fragments that we found, the skulls and stuff. And I refer you to L.A. Marzulli for that kind of the DNA stuff and everything. But they don't seem like they're a whole lot bigger, not like twice as tall or something. But yeah, some of the skeletons were upwards of 18 feet. We know that. Some of them that were found. So that seems to be kind of standard. And just like humans, I thought this was interesting too. Just like humans, um, there are tall humans and there are short humans. And in the realm of giants, there are tall giants and there are short giants. So it's really interesting to look at that. So a short giant would be around 12 feet, an average giant maybe 15, and a really tall one or maybe 18, 19, something like that. There are rumors of ones getting much bigger. Now, in the version of Enoch that we have, and that particular part only comes from the Ethiopic, it says it was 3,000 ells, I think, or 300 ells, which would be something like 50 or 100 feet or something like that. And I'm really thinking somebody slipped a zero in there. So yeah, but they were giants though, so I'm pretty sure that they were pretty tall. But then they also had, I don't want to say like psychic powers or anything, but they were much stronger, wiser in some aspect or whatever. And then because of the genetic stuff, there ended up being 3 distinct clans. And the Lord sent a civil war between the clans so that they would wipe each other out before the flood. Was one of the punishments. So I don't think they were hundreds of feet tall. Can't prove that they were or weren't, but it just seems like Enoch being almost, several hundred or 1,000 or whatever. It's almost too big. Have you seen Scott Carpenter's? That sounds awfully familiar. Scott Carpenter. Anyway, his stuff on Bigfoot, the DNA says it's a hybrid, so it looks like a Nephilim. And they're the size of giant. Makes much sense. DNA, okay, if its mother was human. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we have, if you believe the text, we have, that's what a Nephilim is, a partly human, partly something else. So now I don't know of anybody that's actually ever found a Bigfoot, so I'm still skeptical that they exist, but that kind of thing has been recorded in the text, so it's something to actually look at. Okay, I have heard of credible reports of modern giants up in Canada, Alaska, and Montana, 14 feetish, largest around 23, tail with tusks, and very mean. That would be interesting. Yeah, I hear stuff like that, and I don't know, it's always possible that it would be a giant, it would be some other creature or whatever. So who knows until somebody finds one, brings it out. If there really is something like that, though, and it begins to prove the Christian concept or scares people that those things are around somewhere, it makes sense that the government would kind of take it away.